Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 or video 2 of Write Your Way into Healing. Today, we have a wonderful day for you. How writing changed my life and how it can change yours. Now, I don't want to talk too much about my process because we only have a short time here, but I do want to tell you that I fell in love with writing from a very young age. And the reason why I did is because it was my first take on what freedom felt like and looked like. As a very young age, I was very conscious of the reality that I was born into, and I didn't like it. I really didn't like it, and I wanted to create my own reality. And also, it was, it started off as an escape, but really at the same time, I could try on different versions of myself in different ways. And I could really sense that boundary of where freedom was, where, outside of what I was living there was another way to be, and that was the first time I realized that this too shall pass. Everything that you're born, every situation that you come into, it's wonderful and it's hectic or it's crazy. You can write your way out of it. You can, whatever you want. There's just another way to see the world. You don't have to focus on the world that's immediately in front of you in the external. And I learned that as a very, very young child. So I got to see what freedom felt like and what it looked like, and I got to see how I could create that. And of course that opened up many different worlds for me, and it was beautiful. So I fell in love with this understanding of words, and it would be a long lifetime of this beauty. And this is also how you can work with it too, how everybody can work with it. And I think most people do, most writers do. But also it's how it can change your world. One of the most specific things that I figured, and also people talk about this all the time, and they talk about how you can write through everything that's happened to you, and you can make sense of it, like write out like your life and make sense of your trauma. And I think that's an incredible way to work through everything that you've been through. But I want to offer something else. I want to offer the other side of that. So bear with me for a moment. I never really focused too much on what's happened to me per se. I did write a book, Healing Witchcraft and Conformist World, where I did that. I definitely did that in order to help others. But I feel as though what I love to do in my fiction work is I love to write about the things that didn't happen to me when I was younger, the things I wished had happened, the opportunities that I felt as though other people had and I wasn't able to sort of take part in. But I decided that if I wrote it on the paper, then I still had that reality. It's almost like I was bridging that gap and changing my past and leveling up in my energy. So I never felt as though I missed out on anything. So, it was a wonderful way for me, and it was very healing for me to concentrate on the things that I wanted to happen in my life. And I didn't have to wait for them to come into my life to feel happy. I could write them on the page. And as I wrote them on the page, my energy shifted, right? And I called them into me one way or another. If you listen to the latest podcast, what will be the latest podcast now, about creating magical spaces, I talked about in one of my books, I created one character that ended up being my husband 20 years later. So, whatever you can do, is it part of scripting? It's all included. So it's, we have a very specific defined way that we use scripting, but words and putting words together, it's all magical. It's all alchemical. When you start as a baseline, it creates something. So while it is absolutely wonderful to write out everything that you've been through to make sense of it, and I will 150% stand by anybody who does that, sometimes the way in which I've worked with my trauma, again, is to not concentrate on that, but come from a macro version of it. And again, there's many different ways to do it. I'm just giving you a less road traveled, as they say, but have a more macro version of it and write what you wished happened, all the things that you want to happen, all the things that you wish had happened, and then shift your past and your reality. And when you can make peace with your past just a little bit, then the healing becomes a little bit more accessible, and that trauma becomes a little less heavy for you to acclimate to, for you to bring it in and accept it and feel it and hear it. So sometimes going right in it and scripting about it, or talking about it, or writing it down. It can be too overwhelming. It's something that you don't want to touch. It's too hot to touch. You don't want to do that yet. So I always love to envision the world that I wasn't given as a child. And that's what I write for. And that's how I write. And that's how I complete what wasn't around me when I was little. And that's how I have dealt with all the trauma and everything that I have seen and experienced that a lot of people really, well, no one should have to experience. But so I love the idea of writing what didn't happen, what should have happened, what beauty you should have experienced and didn't. Bring life to that part of you and watch that feeling grow. As you do that, it shifts your outer reality too. Your brain does not understand at all fact from fiction. It really doesn't. In many ways, it's beautiful and it's great, but it's rather basic in that way. It does not understand. So if you feel it and you feel that version of beauty, and yes, you're the one that's in control of that version of beauty, and yes, you're the one that's creating it now. Absolutely, it didn't actually happen. But if your brain is perceiving it as real, then you're going to bring in an aspect of this reality. You're creating your reality on paper, right? Now, there's many different ways to do this too. Now, if you're a horror writer, it doesn't mean that everything that you write is going to come true in the horror. That's another way that other people, and I've written horror too. It's fascinating. It's another way that you can really go into your psyche and make sense of everything that's going on. Many different ways of doing it. Again, it's sort of an elevated macro view of it. But it means that you can process in a completely different way. And again, in a safe way, because you're in control of it on the paper. Now, I have actually written short stories before in horror that have freaked me out, and I'm the one writing it. Ridiculous, right? But I have done that, and I've had to step away from it because I'm freaking myself out. So once you create these, and that's great because that means it's going to freak somebody else out. And if you're writing that sort of thing, that's what you want. But whatever it is that you write as a reminder does become some sort of reality for you. And you can use it in many different directions. But you can, try on different worlds. Again, things that didn't happen to you. And I think that that's an incredible way of bringing back the sort of a sense of beauty and a sense of trust. So that's one way that you can do things. And also, I also love the idea that you can write what is important to you. You can write the book. One of the reasons why I wrote Healing and Witchcraft in a Conformist World is because I wish that book existed when I was trying to figure out why, psychotherapy wasn't working for me. My sister, everybody was telling me, you need to go to psychotherapy. You need to work through your grief. You need to do this. And every time I went there, I wanted to punch the wall. And it just didn't work for me. Again, nothing said against it. I love psychology. I'm actually I was going to train as a psychologist. I love it, and I still do. And I probably will always integrate it into my life one way or another. But none of this worked for me, and I wanted to write something for people who are going through, or beautiful essences that are going through, where they're trying to figure out who they are, and conventional ways aren't working for them. And this is a book that I wish that were in and around me at that time, so I would have felt that I wasn't so crazy, or, if I was going off the beaten path, or I was doing things my own way, then, I would still be okay, and I would still be able to heal. And that's why I wrote that book. It was many different reasons, but that's the main reason. I wrote it for people so they didn't have to go through what I went through, because it was very lonely and alienating. You can write the book that you wish that you had had. And those, I promise you, those books are going to reach out to people. They are going to be, because that's an inclination from source right there. I channeled that book. Probably I wrote it in 2 months. And I felt as though I was very connected to that book, because the one that I wrote, Healing Witchcraft in Conformist World, simply because it was supposed to be written. It had been within me the entire time. There is something within you. Write something that you wish other people had too. And it's going to have that energy around it. And it is going to shift the world. And it is going to make something simpler and easier and more heartfelt for someone else. It will change somebody else's life. And it's important for you to be able to do that, because it makes your truth clearer. It makes you understand what you stand for on the paper, on the page. It gives you a stronger inclination of who you are and much more respect for yourself in some way as you step into this role of being the creator of your own life, right? It can give you this essence and this confidence on paper that maybe right now you don't have in the world. Didn't feel confident at all when I wrote the book, but I felt confident afterwards. You don't have to feel confident at every shape of every moment of your life, but if you put yourself in that position of vulnerability, knowing that it can help other people. And there's many different reasons for you to want to write. This is just one of them. But it really brings you sort of full 180. You can start off non-confident, really understand who you are and your truth and what you stand for. And it allows you to make peace with your past on your own terms. It allows you to, there's so many different things that I've always wanted to say. And I think with Healing Witchcraft in a Conformist World, I just got to get it out on paper. And it wasn't accusatory. It wasn't whatever. It's just exactly what I wanted to say. And I feel like it's exactly what I wanted to say to my psychotherapist. I wanted to go through and say all of that. And they probably would have been like, all right, we'll give you medication. Probably. But at the end of the day, it helps you be clear about who you are. And you really do get to say goodbye to your past. You really do get to say, I'm done with this chapter of my life. I've done this, and the added opportunity for it meaning something to someone else. Because I promise you, if you're thinking it and you're feeling it, somebody else is too, And the one thing that I've realized is all these ideas that I have, somebody has already done that. Somebody's already done that. People have not done it, and they've not done it the way that you've done it. They've not written the book the way that you would articulate it, with the energy that you have, with the exact experience that you have. So the worst thing that we can do to ourselves is really come out of and talk ourselves out of something that hasn't happened yet, that could be potentially brilliant. Nobody, if I sat there and said, a self-help book about, if we're going to typecast it or whatever, a self-help book about, religion, how religion and psychotherapy doesn't work, and that's been done a million times before. Yeah, if I really went down that route, I wouldn't have written the book. But nobody's going to write it like you. No one's going to have the energy of you. Nobody has your experiences. Nobody has your wisdom, not quite like you. No one's going to use the words that you do. No one's going to have the energy that you're going to put into it and the time and the conclusions that are going to come out of this. These are all yours on the page, and they can show you absolutely everything, like a reflection and a mirror. And with that information, you can do anything you want with it. And it's important that if we don't feel connected in the world, we need to imprint ourselves in the world. I talked about this also in the podcast when we're coming into, making your magical spaces. You've got to be able to see yourself in the world. If you can't, write yourself into it, and write yourself into it on your own terms. No one can take that back from you. It doesn't have to be out there. It doesn't have to be published. You can write for yourself. That's fine. Again, there's many different levels to this, and there's no pressure how you want to do it, how you want to put yourself out there, or not at all. This can be just for you. But this is a way that you can absolutely imprint your energy, your vibration, what you have to say, your truths onto the world. No one can take that from you. An editor can come in and help you organize that, but it's still your energy and it's still your words. It's always going to be you. And this is important for you. Once you have that beautiful foundation of confidence, there's nothing you can't do. And if we can help people along the way by telling them that they're not alone and that you've been through it too, and there's a way out and you've got them, why not? That's what we're here to do. We're here to lift each other up, lift ourselves up, lift each other up, and show each other that, there's a great amount of compassion and beauty in the world. So create that on the paper first, let it go out into the world and take up this expansive energy. And from there, you can do anything. So that's what we have for you today, my darlings. Thank you for joining me today for video 2 of this. Please join me for video 3 tomorrow, because we're going to set you on your path. Because this is a practical course. We've been talking about it. Now let's get you writing. We're going to give you some writing prompts and some other support. So join us tomorrow. All right, my darlings, until we meet again, take care. Bye-bye.